This is the Ibanez Vintage Model 628 from 1974. Now, the style of the guitar looks kind of familiar. Well, Gibson would agree with you as well, considering this was one of the guitars that led to what people called the Ibanez lawsuit era. Yes, Gibson was a tad upset about this, no doubt, considering even the headstock makes you do a bit of a double take. Back in the day, this thing, according to my father, was about 400 Canadian dollars. And with inflation, that makes this about a $2,600 guitar today, which doesn't exactly equal out, all things considered. For the most part, it is a relatively average-looking guitar. This one hasn't been particularly well taken care of. The action itself is amazing, though it buzzes as of the 4th fret, and it doesn't get much better the higher up the neck you go. The tuners are, in a word, frustrating, mostly due to proper upkeep though. They stick when you try to tune it, and it can be a massive frustration just getting it into tune, let alone keeping it in tune. But when it is in tune, my God. It is a powerhouse of sound. Warm textures spill out of its body, and even with the brightest of strings on it, it doesn't sound shrill. But the most important thing to point out about this guitar isn't a spec, it isn't the condition, or the action. It is, like most family heirloom guitars or instruments, the memories and the history of it that makes this guitar special. I played my first chord on this guitar. Let me set the scene. I was 8 years old, and I'd been eyeing it up for some time. And finally, one day, instead of scolding me for touching it, my father made me sit on the couch with the guitar, and he taught me the A chord. Now, my poor, underdeveloped fingers could barely press the strings down. He said if I could find a way to play the A chord properly and let all 6 strings ring out, that he would let me play it and learn on it. Again, I was 8 years old. Looking back, I'm pretty sure he was hoping I would figure it was too hard and I would just move on. I think he was just annoyed at the time, having to shoo me away from it constantly, that this would be his way of showing that it was beyond me. And he was wrong. I sat there for hours. My fingers hurt, my hand cramped, and I just slowly picked away at the strings, hoping that I could play that A chord. And I got to admit, I came pretty close. But as dinner time came, he made me put down the guitar. I do remember, though, the grudging respect he had in his eyes. And from that day forward, I was never denied access to the guitar. Now, at this point, I wasn't exactly a moth to a flame. He didn't teach me a bloody thing. He just let me play it whenever I wanted. But I didn't have a purpose, no musical flame to make me pursue anything more than to practice chords. And I did that for a couple of years. I learned all the basics. Remember, I started all of this at the age of 8. I remember how bloody big this guitar was in my lap. And then, I think I was around 10, the first inspiration hit me. It was Tom Petty's Free Falling. The chords were simple and slow, and my young brain was bound and determined to learn it. And that became the song that first stoked the fire in me for playing. It was the ability to recreate something that you heard on your home stereo. And it was bloody intoxicating. Slowly, over the coming years, this guitar ended up in my room more and more. Now, the guitar stand in the living room would be vacant more often than not. You see, my father had developed arthritis in his hands, and while he wanted to play, he just wasn't able to anymore. The odd time he would yell at me to bring down the guitar so he could play it, but it wasn't more than an hour or so that it would be back up in my room. At one point, he actually bought me an electric Laro SG style guitar so he could reclaim his, and it almost worked. But it just meant I had 2 guitars in my room, and I was perfectly happy to let him build my collection. And when it came time for me to move out, he actually gifted me this guitar. Each time I would see my father, he would ask about it, how it was holding up. For a time, I actually gave it back to him, but even that didn't last long. His days of playing guitar were long gone, and I think it just offered him comfort to hold it and pluck away at the strings. And well, now he's gone. 72 years old, and all I have of him is here in this guitar. You see, though, over the past few days of grief that I've been working through, this guitar has been a massive salve. It's allowed me to reconnect with him in a way that I never considered before, which is what makes this, the 1974 Ibanez Vintage Model 628, so special. And much like any other instrument that has been passed down over the ages, it has memories. This guitar has written music. This guitar has performed in front of thousands, and it's rung out at all times, day and night. It holds those memories of everyone that's cradled it, and it brings you close to them as you hold it yourself and just let it sing. Now, if you've been on this channel for a bit, you know I've always referred to this guitar as big, boomy, and out of tuning. And I think with the passing of my father, that's going to change. I'm booking this thing in with a specialist, and I do intend to honor my father's memory with this guitar in many different ways. For now, I'm not exactly sure what's going to come of this, but I do know that it's going to involve music. And I just hope that he can hear it. Rest in peace, Bob.